Who's home? Who's home? Okay. Thokozani, Mo Africa. Vusi Muzi. Hi, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Oh, we're moving fast. Hi, my Jaden. How are you doing? Thank you. You. Thank you guys for showing up. Sorry, guys, I no longer make excuses for burping. So if I burp, it is what it is. Umoya. It used to embarrass me a lot, this whole burping. Thokozani, Thokozani, I see we're moving and filling in fast. Yes, yes. Guys, can you hear me? Just give me some love hearts or some likes if you can hear me, because I'm using these. So I'm testing, 1, 2, testing. Can you guys hear me? Yes, you can hear me. Perfect. Okay. Thokoza, Gogo Nancy. Nomshado. Thokozani. Let's just fill up. Let's see how many more people are coming. We are going to have a very interesting discussion today. I'm bringing back Mkhulu Nsingiza because Mkhulu is a wealth of knowledge on a lot of things. And he's very much aligned with the teachings on our platform. The reason we do these teachings is literally to spark some DNA memory in the children of Africa. Thokoza Dobbs, yes, you can hear me clearly. Good. Thank you, guys. Sindisiwe, thank you, Gogompala. How are you? Nozipo, Babalwa, you guys, thank you for showing up. All right, so I think we will wait for Mkhulu to come on. But in the meantime, Thokozani, Kamagwini, Lesedi Lehanya, Kwaziwai, Tobela, Kedu, Jambo, Kilo Day. Hi to everybody. Hi to everybody, wherever it is you're tuning in from. Thank you guys for joining us for this conversation. Eloise, hello. Tandy, hello. Yeah, I think here we go. So I will see if, wait to see if Mkhulu shows up. If Mkhulu is here, Mkhulu, please request and I will bring you on. I'm actually very punctual today. I'm proud of myself. So, Usisiwe Mgomezulu, hello. You know what I can do, guys, is I can give an introduction because there's quite a bit of for us to go through. So while we wait for Mkhulu, I will keep you entertained. I will keep you entertained by giving you an introduction to this topic that we're doing. So it's this. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson, right? And we're going to start our history lesson by looking at what pre-colonial Africa looked like. This is before the wave of colonization that ended up with the republics as we know it. What do we mean by republics? Yeah, Republic of South Africa, Republic of Zimbabwe, Democratic Republic of Congo, République du Senegal, and so on and so on. The republics, Republic of Rwanda, Republic of Uganda, the republics in Africa. This was not the original governance structure of Africa. And prior to colonization, Africa was divided into many, many kingdoms. I'll just give you, this is a later kingdom. But over centuries, Africa, the map is a bit, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how to do that thing where you can see things properly. But in your mind, just be a little dyslexic and switch this around. But here we go. Prior to colonization, the continent of Africa had no borders, right? It had no boundaries. So what we currently have right now in Africa if you take a look, is we have these borders. It's literally as if colonizers took a knife and sliced Africa up, irrespective of what they were doing to the peoples who lived in this land. Their main concern was each of them wanted to get a share in this on this continent based on natural resources. That's why, for example, we have places like Cameroon, where you have the northern part of Cameroon speaking French and the southern speaking English. So Mkhulu is here. I'm going to bring him on. Then I'll continue my history lesson, and then him and I can have a conversation. There we go. Approve. Wait a minute. Did that happen? Let's try again. Approve. There's. Mkhulu should be coming on. And there we go. Joining. Thokoza Mkhulu.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi.
Ninjani siyavusela makhosi.
Thokoza Ndlovukazi. Siyaphila Ndlovukazi.
Mkhulu, you joined us when I was just giving a brief history lesson. So I was just showing people that prior to colonization, Africa was actually divided into kingdoms. And unfortunately, I don't know how to switch my camera so the map doesn't look the wrong way. But it gives an idea. And I was explaining to them that colonization brought us this and these republics. Obviously, the thing or the process that led to this is the fact that Europeans and many other nations had been trading along the coast of Africa for a very long time. And even prior to what is called the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference, guys, is the place where it was decided in 1884 how they were going to share Africa. Now, remember, Africa's fate was decided for her in her absence at this conference. And one of the things that happened at this conference, which was organized by Otto von Bismarck, who was the first chancellor of Germany, this conference did a lot of things, but the major thing that it sought to do was to override the autonomy and existing self-governance in Africa. So the birth of the republics comes after colonization, when our freedom fighters went to war to win our independence. And upon winning our independence, these structures did not change at all. The only thing that changed is that they were, quote unquote, on paper, no longer under colonization. And secondly, there was a name change. So it became from Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, we got the Republic of Zambia, we got the Republic of Zimbabwe, we got the Republic of South Africa, we got the Republic of Guinea, and so on and so forth. These are the current republics that we're talking about. I just wanted to touch a little bit because it may sound like 1884 to 1885 at this conference. By the way, at this conference, there were 13 European countries, 6 of which got nothing. And these countries always like to wash their hands off of the colonial history. But the fact is they didn't get anything there directly. They didn't get a country, but they benefited. So we have Netherlands, we have Russia, we have Denmark, we have Sweden. These countries went to the conference, didn't come away with a signed piece of paper saying, you now own this country or that country or this part of Africa. But they do still today benefit from colonization and exploitation of the African continent. Of course, the USA was present, and the USA walked away with, not with a piece of land, but we also know currently that the USA has a huge footprint across the entire African continent. The USA is known to fund groups of militia that go around destroying villages in order to get to minerals that are in the ground where these villages are built. And it's documented, it's not a lie, so Facebook cannot block me for saying that. Now, so 1884, this major conference happened, right? They carved up Africa, yay! Everybody went home happy, some not so happy. But really, this, as far as the Europeans were concerned, it became a necessity because industrialization was building up in Europe. They were building factories. Now they needed timber, they needed gold, they needed other minerals. And so basically, Europe as we know it, industrialized Europe. So right now, as we know it with those tall structures and building, was literally built on Africa. They could not have built the structures that if you go on vacation, you see. They could not have built those structures without the resources of Africa. There's one thing that they won't document in current history, which is it wasn't just the resources in terms of material resources, but it was also intellectual resources. A lot of the structures that we see in Europe were actually taken off of blueprints on the African continent. They perfected it somehow, and whatever perfection means, but Europe is built on the back of Africa, and that's just the way it is. So then they also started a process after this conference called process of effective occupation, which is where now the colonizers or the colonizing countries decided to move people onto the African continent with good reason, to manage how their resources were going to be moved on and out. Two, this was also done, and there's a classic example of this. This was done sometimes in very insidious ways. For example, King Leopold of Belgium. See, Belgium didn't get anything. So King Leopold was sour. So what he did was he created a fake philanthropic company or charity, if you like. And he used missionaries as the front to get into what was then the Kingdom of the Congo. Now, the Congo Kingdom is huge, or was huge. So he used missionaries to go in there. But he had a problem because when he went in, the Portuguese had already been Christianizing people since the 1400s. Now we're talking 1800s. So we're talking it's 1816 that Leopold was on his project. There is a famous letter that I'll put up at some point, which you guys can read, which is called King Leopold's Letter to the Missionaries who were going into the Belgian Congo.
Sure.
Where in this letter, he basically says, you cannot teach these people anything about God. You cannot teach these people anything about spiritual things. However, your mission is to make them believe that their God and the things and practices that they do are evil, and that the God we're presenting to them in the Bible is the one true God, and they are to worship no other, and they are to do nothing else in terms of practices except that which is prescribed in the Bible. So that is why for many of us, the Bible is not something that is a palatable resource for things spiritual, because the question becomes, how does a book that was used to subjugate you by your colonizer or enslaver, how then can that same text liberate you, right? So that's a story for another day, but I wanted to give the historical context to the conversation we're about to have with Umkhulu. So Umkhulu, bring us up to the 60s. So we've been colonized now from 1884 to, let's say, 1960s. What happens?
What happens is that, Ndlovukazi, if we don't destroy these structures, like abelungu before kuze kufonywe all these republics bangena ngamakhosi. You know, they went in through amakhosi. Some of them were defeated, some of them were killed. Those who resisted, only a structure that was in agreement with the colonizer was allowed to actually retain their position.
Right.
Then, you know, the children of those kings and queens were then sent, you know, to go and learn the ways of the colonizer so that they are able to effectively defend the land. Unfortunately, the children of, you know, those kings ended up by being swallowed by the system. You know, by the time they went back, they never saw any value in terms of the lifestyle that they were living before. And they now started looking down upon the, you know, king and queen. Why? Because they haven't been colonized or so or educated enough. You know, so the education of the West then became the standard of medium, and therefore, you know, they afforded that education system the position that it really didn't deserve. You know, I think it was Ukazikazi, when they got to America, they saw all these lights, you know, and they are from, you know, in nature, Suge Makai, where it's just darkness, you know, which was life.
Yeah.
Maybe figure in these towns where they were colonized, Baba Fagule Kolo and universities where they are going to work on their minds. So that by the time they went back home, you know, the colonizer will then look at whoever is from, you know, that country, whom they have trained and whom they can trust with managing the system, which then, you know, became the norm on the continent that, you know, for any, some sort of liberation, you know, they call for liberation, and yet behind the scenes and doors, they had already signed to serve the colonizer. So they were just selling African people an illusion to think that they are liberated, and yet they were not. Because as long as the colonizer was still the head of the, you know, republic, there's no independence there, there's no liberation. So this is what has been happening ever since until now, which is why I think time has come now for us to dismantle these structures of evilness, because it's evilness. You know, if you were to trace the problem of African people, you'll find that these republics are the source of all our problems, because they hold, you know, stolen wealth, they hold a stolen land. So therefore, there's no justification for any sane African to want to wish to be either a minister or a servant of the structure, because by default, you are then selling black people. You are assisting the colonizer to perpetuate this evil structure, you know, upon us, which is why a call has to be, you know, amplified now for the destruction of, you know, these republics on the continent, so that we are able to reclaim reparations for the wealth that they took, you know, from us. They give us our land back so that we become normal again, because we haven't been normal ever since our leaders accepted these republics. And it was just a pure greed, you know, and a hunger for power for them to even agree to preside over, you know, this theft. You know, that, you know, they were overwhelmed, you know, and taken by that spirit of self-preservation. If I can benefit, therefore, I agree to preside over theft. I agree to be the agent of suppressing my own governing system of the continent. I agree, you know, to serve, you know, the colonizer to the best of my ability. So that is what.
Wait, what happened? Wait, I think we lost Mkulu for some reason. Let it not be load shedding. Okay, wait for Mkulu to come back on. And I think, so guys, are we all together? Are we together with this talk? You're understanding very much so, I hope, that this in Africa is not working and will never work, which is why we can change, we can change leaders, right? We can take out this leader. Right now, we're all crying about dictators, failed leadership, and in all these republics. Do you know what? We can take these leaders out and put in those leaders who right now, because they're not within the system, are talking a good game, right? They are telling us what they will do, and they will do this and they will do this. The minute they get in, the very structure of the system, the very structure of the republics and the rules within will limit them. They will not be able to do these things within that structure. There are a lot of people who say things like, well, you know what? I want to get in so I can change things from within. Not with this monster. Not with this monster called the republics. There's nothing you can change from within. And so why is it important for African people where these republics? Because a lot of people will say, now, who wants to go back to this model and rather than this model? Because our original model aligned with our belief system and our way of living spiritually as African people. You see, people always say, you know, separate politics from you know, separation of church and state. That's a famous one here. The truth of the matter is, African people are not church people, we're spiritual people. So our very system of governance prior to colonization was founded and based on spirituality. Now, when we are learning history, we are never taught about the beautiful organization that existed within African kingdoms and how this organization around the palace or Isgodlo served in a radiating fashion to influence the dwellers or the people of that kingdom. So the idea that there were certain designated spaces for certain people, and traditional healers or inyanga or mashikiro, izangoma, had a very critical role to play in that. They were consulted when it was time to go to war. There was Undlunkulu, which is Queen Mother, who for most times had the final say about whether war was going to be waged. She had her own space. She was the one who was responsible for ukupahla, not just for the family, but ukupahla on a national level. National, not the way you guys understand national, but in the way you understand kingdom. So there was a very efficient governance structure that was aligned with our spirituality, that was aligned with nature. The wars that were fought also had rules of engagement, right? Rules of engagement where it was understood that wars will be fought, but there were certain things that Ubuntu Betu, or our humanity, would not allow us to do. Post-war, the same people who are warring together came together to build and to move forward. Now, I'm not talking about the time of Shaga. Shaga was special, but I'm talking even pre-Shaga, how things were structured. After battles were waged, there was a national cleansing of kingdoms, because blood had been spilled. And we know in African spirituality that you need to atone for blood lost and you need to make amends. And this was how ubudlelwane amongst ethnic groups was built. These republics, by the way, guys, you know, they're not very old. So we all started gaining independence on that continent in the 60s. We're not yet too saying. So even our period of colonization, or what they call effective occupation, that period is actually not long as well. And kudos that we could take it off. But our so-called liberators didn't go the whole way. The whole way would have been to say, yeah, thank you, we are free now, and then tear up all those agreements and treaties which continue to hold the African continent captive, because all our resources continue to be funneled to the West. If Africa's tap of resources, intellectual as well as mineral and material resources, was closed, Europe would become a ghost continent. They are still siphoning off of us. The French, the British, you name it. The Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, has one sole purpose, and one, it was to consolidate power for the British. But you know, our leaders don't see that. They saw it as a fantastic opportunity to get into a big boys club with your oppressor. That is why it has come to this point where we need to be teaching the truth and speaking the truth, because our children deserve a better Africa than the Africa that we are currently inhabiting. And it's going to take you, it's going to take me to make that shift. And as Mkulu was saying, the infiltration of the colonizer happened through the leadership that was then in existence, which was Amakhosi, the kings, the queens. I'll talk about the kings because, okay. So this is how the colonizer managed to infiltrate. Usually, especially with missionaries, they would convert the king first, because once they got the king as a convert, they knew that the rest of the kingdom had no choice but to follow suit. So if the king became Christian, the kingdom became Christian. Of course, there were always a few exceptions, especially the seers, these Zangoma, and people who knew that no, something isn't right. Which is why the Anti-Witchcraft Act was then formulated, which was actually brought in from Britain, because they'd started killing seers way back then. And they brought it onto the continent because these people were problematic. These people could read signs. These people could see what the colonizers were thinking. So they needed to be done away with. The best way to do that was to get Amakhosi on their side, so that they were the ones now responsible for implementing the Anti-Witchcraft Act and basically killing their own people off, sending them all into hiding. I guess the sad fact of the matter is we had our own hand. We had a hand in our own colonization, fine. There were times where battles were fought. These guys were fighting with muskets, guns, gunpowder, and people were defeated. But there were other times where the defeat actually happened because there were sellouts throughout these kingdoms. People who they sold out, decided to get greedy, because some of the things they sold out for, you will not believe. The only way the colonizer could infiltrate and penetrate the continent and implement effective occupation was through being let in by the kings. So now here we are today, we have these republics. They are still in place. And in places where these kings still exist, mind you, in some places they are still called Amakhosi. In places like Zimbabwe, they had to be reduced to what are called chiefs. Because it was said there's only one queen. Yeah, now we're talking about this current queen, because, you know, the colonization is quite recent. This woman died very, very old. There was only one king, one queen, one sovereign person. So, of course, in places like Zimbabwe could not be called kings, because that would mean they were equals to the royal house in the UK. So they had to downgrade, and they were called chiefs. places were called chieftaincies or chiefdoms, not kingdoms anymore. Imagine what that does to the psyche of a people. So now, when independence came, those who liberated us, rather than handing power back to the kings or chiefs, as you would call them, decided to sign agreements and hold power to themselves. Then, in order not to have noise from the chiefs, they also decided to give some kickbacks to the chiefs. So we have liberation fighters who sold us out. We have our very own Amakosi who sold us out. And this is what Mkulu was talking about when he's saying there has to be something that happens. These things have to be dismantled, because after all these years, why is the African child still suffering under penury on their own continent? Meanwhile, we are the wealthiest, richest continent on the planet. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Why government after government post-independence is so inept at service delivery, is so inept and useless at taking care of the African child? Why? You can't tell me all of them, like all of them, J, all of them can't. No, it's because they are trying to work within a framework and a system that was designed to perpetuate colonialism. That is the neo-colonialism, but they don't necessarily have to be on the continent, although they've left their offspring. But Europe and will continue to milk, divide and conquer. What these republics did was create chaos that still continues today. You will hear of wars along the Rwanda-Congo border. But meanwhile, these are the same people along that border. You will hear of wars between there's always a war of some sort, an ethnic, I won't call it tribal because I hate that word, such a colonial word. But there's always an ethnic war somewhere on this continent at any given point. Why is that? Because that was perpetuated. And so while we are busy fighting, divide and conquer, we are busy fighting ourselves. They are busy siphoning. They will destabilize and then tell the government, whatever republic, that no, we will come in with our military, we will sell you arms. Arms going to do to be used on their own people. In return for those arms, can we have some gold and some platinum and some cobalt? You see? So they give us weapons to kill ourselves, to kill one another. But in the meantime, what are we giving them? We're giving them our wealth. How sick is that? I think the more people wake up, I know sometimes, you go through groups and you see people, the South African government, or the Zim government has failed us. It will continue to fail you. Take the current government out. A bunch of aliens in. As long as they're working within the structure, they will continue to fail us because it was never designed pro us. This is why even as we exist and live on the continent, the few Abelungu that are there still hold economic power. Listen, your political power sitting in parliament is useless. You do not have economic power if you do not own, if you do not have your land. You think you're doing something, but all you're doing as a politician is pushing papers. The real owners, 2% in your countries, as you call them. I call these countries because for me these don't exist. Who are sitting in your countries, chowing, And we continue enslaved because we're the ones who work their factories. We are the ones who are working their mines, even the so-called mines that are now owned by government. Read the fine print. Government mines. Where do those resources go? They mine diamonds, they mine platinum, they mine cobalt. Where do they go? Out. In exchange for what? Peanuts. In exchange for what? You people are rioting on the streets because you are hungry. One country says, no, man, send us a consignment of gold bars. And in exchange, yeah, you need weapons to keep these people. We are going to send our special forces to train your people to deal with the masses. So our wealth goes, the guns come in, Bas to do our own governments. And the reason we are messed up, African children, is because our way of being was so linked to our spirituality. We lived and existed within our spirituality. These kingdoms, Lalama Kosi and the organization, you know, we didn't have churches. Colonization. Our churches were Isgodlo, the palace. This is where people would meet, and this is where offerings and libations would be made on a national level. People then did it on a familial level, each to their own individual ancestors, but on a national level. See, and this is the missing piece. See, yeah, before meetings, African leaders, let us pray. Pray to who? Prayer. People would meet, and this is where the messages about how to do things and how to move would come. We are dissociated from that. This is why we're messed up. And we fight one another. Let me tell you, I want to start something that I'm going to put up here. It's going to fascinate you guys. Just to show you how really we are just one. These boundaries don't mean a thing. I want you guys to really internalize this. These boundaries don't mean a thing. When these kingdoms existed, Amakosi wonke lawa, they used to intermarry and interchange. Freedom. People would migrate from one place to another and be welcomed in peace. People were moving. That's why I say we are the same. I can use my example. I like to use myself as a story, right? I was born Shona Karanga. What I thought were two Shona Karanga families, right? In Zimbabwe. Come to find out that my mother's family actually out of Swaziland, Moshachwag, Onkala, Vairangara, Oposa, Omaposa. On my father's side, turns out that originally they come from near the border of Congo and Zambia. This is where their kingdom was, where my grandfather, I don't even know how far removed, Wayenkosi was a king there. So now if I decide that I'm going to build or move to Swaziland or South Africa, why would you stop me? Because you think I'm Zimbabwean. But where's my heritage? Where's my ancestry? We need to start believing and seeing ourselves for who we truly are. We're one. Think of the Sotho word for a dress or the Zulu, irokwe. In Chikaranga, it's rogwe. The Sotho say mwana. In Chikaranga, it's mwana. In Swahili, it's mwana. And many others. Like, this is what I'm saying. Linguistically, if you look, you can see how so well connected we are. growing up, when my mother wanted to smack us, my mother would say, Doku donora. Do you know what made me laugh the other day is to hear somebody who speaks Sesotho say, Yahu donora. I was like, how? I used to think donora was a made-up word by my mom, but it's in our lexicon as abantu. Sesotho is, right? Karanga is kuma. In Zezuru, it's kunwa. And yet we want to deny that we're interconnected. Oh, there's Mkulu. Mkulu. There we go. Mkulu is back. Thokoza Khetla.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I just was cut off.
Yeah, well, we welcome you back. Don't worry, I had plenty to say. You know, I had plenty.
Yeah.
There was
I could hear. I was listening.
You were there. Okay, I thought maybe everything had shut down. But Mkulu, since you were listening, take over.
Angizwanga Ndlovukazi.
Ngithi, since you were listening, can you continue where I left off?
Oh yes, Ndlovukazi. That's why, you know, I was saying that we've got to amplify that struggle or the effort of dismantling these republics, you know, because they are no longer serving us. And they are not just going to, that won't just happen. We need to fight because it's our right, you know, it's demand for justice. Remember, Gucci, we are not alone. The UN in 1974 declared South Africa as crime against humanity. They were not just talking about human beings who were running this structure, but they were talking about this republic, the structure itself, that was supposed to fall in 94, but it didn't fall. Instead, you know, we're just pacified and told that, you know, the return of land will come after some time. So we still, you know, because they told us a lot of things are in transition. After a certain period, we have to go back to how things were. You know, nanamhlanje salindile. And if you were to project a future, nobody is prepared to give up, you know, power amongst all the leaders of the continent, which then says we cannot rely on them. Like you were saying, a betrayal was double, Amakosi and the politicians. And we were left, you know, like parentless, you know, as African people, because all the so-called parents or leaders of ours, they were all compromised, all of them. Yeah. Nobody is a shining example. All of them, you know, they were consumed by the system. Yeah. And Namanj, it's not going to just change on their own. Tina, we need to strengthen the parallel system that we are working on already so that more Black people join in the movement, you know, because once they see us uniting outside religion and politics on the ground, they will have no other option but to join us because they will be too embarrassed to expose the masses, you know, trying to actually unite. So that's the only solution we have, Ndlovukazi. And this unity yethu iza kahle because ihlanganiswa umoya. See, unite, you know, based on the calendar yethu, our calendar, because that is where the source of our power is. Once we understand the laws that govern the universe, then it becomes easy for us to actually push the struggle. Yeah. On this struggle for all this time, Sense of God. We have been on the struggle for all this time, Sense of God. You know, so we cannot falter now. We just have got to push on because umoya uyavuma. You know, umoya uyavuma ukuthi this thing has got to happen. Therefore, we can't then, lose that strength to push forward. And manje it's time ukuthi sifake more petrol. Singalokho sikhehlele emuva. You know, we've got to push this thing aggressively until ilenda la kumele ilende khona. The first layer and level is African unity. If we can demonstrate that unity, no force will stand there, against us. So therefore, it's very important, Ndlovukazi, to have these discussions continuously because, they are assisting our people for them to actually see the illusion for what it is. Because we've been sold an illusion all over the continent, giving us, false, of liberation. Whilst people know very well that they are still tied up to the British Empire. So therefore, Umoya is exposing all these things. All we have to do, Tina, kumele senze lokhu okumele sikwenze. And, our most potent weapon, umpahla.
Amen.
Siyaphahla nje Ndlovukazi, lezi zinto zizoyiwela. Njengoba sokuwe ikhanda labo. Angazi, what type of black people are these who don't have his self-respect. For now in this day and age, you still want and aspire to be a subject of a particular person that you don't even know. So we on the ground are rejecting that. We are saying, if a president and his cabinet decide to actually agree, and perpetuate this thing that Charles, this fake king, is going to be the head of South Africa, just like the mother. Abahambe bodwa leyo ndlela thina sayingeni leyo nto leyo. Nobody will take us as slaves again. So therefore, bakhohlwe. Yingakho we need to mobilize. I mean, how ridiculous this thing is. For them to go and beg to be,
to go to the funeral.
the presence of a racist colonizer, to go and accompany an evil person because that queen is the epitome of evilness. Because of the atrocities it caused, all over the continent. So what type of a mind of an African that still begs, to be in the midst of evil people, because you can't then say, Gucci, when we are seen rubbing shoulders with this evilness, then you are impressing us. We are disgusted with you because we can't believe in this day and age, any sane African would even think of that thing. Worse, in Inkosi, a whole king goes and begs to be invited into that evil house. What type of people we have, like Makanda. This is how low we've gone in terms of leadership. If this is the best we can produce, then we don't have leaders on the continent. Therefore, we should take a leadership ourselves. Ndlovukazi, thokoza.
I'm laughing because I saw the letters. Unfortunately, you will not be allowed to come. And then I'm like, these people actually applied to go to bury Gogom Loy. To bury Gogom Loy.
Unbelievable. And to make it worse, guys, Inkosi is not supposed to go to funerals.
Yes, he's
as a king, because we need purity laguwe. Kungabi nefu elizokumboza. Don't they know those are simple things in about of course? For you to want to go and beg.
No, Mkulu. He was going to come home and geza. Where geza? Where's geza? Susama baji, susama tunza mnyama. Yo.
It's crazy. It's crazy,
But
of guys.
on a serious note, Mkulu, I was these issues we talk about are so important. And, it is also important for when we talk about our unity and the things that are working against us. I think understanding our history becomes really important. Like I was saying to people, these republics are artificial. The boundaries of these republics don't exist. They don't. They exist on this piece of paper, which is why you find people like they want to cross from here to here. And then you tell me by taking a step over some imaginary line, I've crossed over from my country, Mozambique, into South. So it's an imaginary line. Like they don't exist. You find that people who live here and here are speaking the same languages, are related. They did that with India and Pakistan, where they divided families in half. Same Batagati, same monarchy did that. And to this day, there are issues between India and Pakistan as a result. Divide and conquer. Right? So I want people to really think about some of these things. That's why I was giving linguistic similarities to show that actually at the end of the day, we're all interrelated. And
sure, that's true.
You look at our languages. They will tell you, if we were so separate and in silos, how is it that one word can mean the same thing in 6 different geographic locations? Right?
That is so true.
Yeah. So, like we said on the last one, Uguti, when I said, what is our role? What can we do? And you said, number 1, unity. And number 2, umpatho for unity and umpatho for our things to be returned. We are already seeing the signs, like you say, umoya is working on our behalf. Tina, what we need to do is flow with that spirit, because change is here. It already is here. It just needs to manifest into our current reality.
Injalo, it's exactly like that. Tina singalokho siwarisha ukuthi we don't have this and we don't have that. Umoya has everything we need, and the Umoya would take us where we're supposed to be. Umuntu omnyama, angastress lutho. We just have got to do what we have to do. Tina mele siqhubeke, sihloniphe these principles that have created us and created everything that lives. Just like what our ancestors did. Our Okhokho bethu were relentless, in creating a resonance between what is above and what is below. So nathi mesingahlala nje right there, and then now we have an instrument which is guiding us, a calendar, to say, sikule season le. Therefore, a character of the energy of the season can be accessed through these and these and these and these, things and actions for you to be able to create the necessary frequency that will then resonate, with the frequency of the season. So that's all we have to do, Tina Sloko Sipata. Everything will be returned. Singa stress at all. Because it's time for change, whether we like it or not. And the mesima endleleni of this change is also to dula. Better not find yourself on the wrong side, yalo moya, because enye into resist, enye into sabotage, because you will have yourself to blame. Just flow with this energy, and that's it.
Togoza, Kate. Togoza. Guys, all right, we are a lot of people on this page. So after this, I want you guys to run over to GEK, Great Empire of Kemet. And I want you to like and follow. There's a reason for this. There you will find other resources and information, especially if you're in South Africa, as to the activities that are going on.
it's there that you will learn about umphatlo law. You will learn, because Mkulu is constantly putting out information, constantly. They have a specific time, actually, where bayenza lo mphatlo law. And I don't know if you still do it in Mkulu, but there was a time you guys used to go live, because I think I caught it a couple of times, where you go live with it, so that wherever you are in South Africa at a certain time, you can join in. So please go and like and follow Great Empire of Kemet, and there you will find a lot of resources. I think there's an app as well that people can access. Unfortunately, I tried. I can't do it from here. It just won't let me.
No.
So yeah. So guys, please do that. That way you get the full extent of the work that's going on, and also you know how to actively participate, so we continue to build this community, this movement. Ne?
No, certainly. In Ndlovukazi, there is a mobile app created. It's called ChemiChat. So in our limitations of Wamanje, because it's only for Android. But very soon after New Year, we'll be launching that, a Mac or iOS. This is, it happens all the time. The live umphaso. People can join us there. Download the ChemiChat Lapago, www.gekmovement.org. There is a button there where you can download, so that you join the community, so that you get used to umphaso, because that's what we need. That collective umphaso is very powerful. That umphaso can bring down, mountains. So, which is why we're encouraging, the more Black people get into this, the better for everybody, because once after we have demonstrated that unity. I'm just making an example. Just the assembling Lai Orlando Stadium is about 45,000 people. Just the Sigcwaliselesa Stadium and be talking about this. That will be the day of true liberation of a Black person. Because from there, we then sort out everything that is an anomaly in our life as a collective, which is what we need. And this is what both politicians, and the business people don't want, because we will then be wise, even with our spend. We will try and encourage our people to start producing, so that we stop in communities of consumers. Everything we eat must be produced by us. Everything we wear must be produced by us. That's the only way we can get out of this. Black unity and nothing else.
No, Thokoza Mkhulu. And I really like that, because, even here in the States, whenever Black people have wanted to cripple a system that hurts them, they remove themselves from the economy. They stop spending. They stop spending. They stop spending. They the boycott culture is very big here. Some companies say something racist, we boycott.
Sure.
Right now, there is a trend where we buy Black only. We support one another. Black-owned businesses, like people will put out with big platforms. Black-owned businesses only today. Put your products here. This is a way of making, slowly but surely, a system that oppresses you obsolete. You render that system useless. And I mean, in this country, there's a history. There used to be a Black Wall Street, where Black people said, okay,
Sure.
we are removing ourselves from you. We're going to build our own. And they did.
Yes.
Umlungu came and destroyed it. All they did was they've done several times. They create a lie. The most common lie is there's a Black man who raped a white woman.
Yeah.
They go in there, they burn everything.
That's true.
To the ground. So we know Uguti, we are in a war, Yentole, because not only are we at war with the structure itself, but we are at war with our own who are sellouts. And majority of these people are those who hold power in these governments. It serves them to keep the structure alive, but it certainly doesn't serve us.
No, it doesn't serve us at all, especially manje, because I mean, we are wiser now. They cannot judge us based on the decisions that were taken by our fathers, you know, out of ignorance. We are wiser now. We know the truth. We know what happened to Africa pre-colonization. So therefore, they are dealing with a different generation. We are not going to allow them. You know, we are preparing a better future for our kids. So which is why we need this militancy. So that, because remember, guys, nobody gives you power. You take
it,
you know, and you demand, you know, that power. So that is the attitude that we need to have. Because as Black people on the continent, we are on the right. We need to rise against these evil structures that are, you know, making us, you know, suffer, you know, this much. And these are the republics. You know, without us dealing Alama republics, you know, will continue forever. And therefore, you know, that cannot be allowed. Tina, we are a generation that should stop this. It has to stop with us. Otherwise, the future is doomed.
No, Togoza kid. Well,
Togoza.
I think we can, like I always say, we can sit here and talk forever. But thank you so much for gracing us once again. Guys, please, some love and likes from Kulu. So what we'll do is Mikasa Sukasa, right? So you are welcome anytime.
So therefore, commitment, anytime you need us, and Njobukazi will be there. Togos and Njobukazi.
Thank you so much, Nkulu. Thank you, Thomas. And Thomas on, guys. Bye. Take care.